Welcome to the Tuesday, October 24th meeting of the Health and Education Committee. Our first order of business is to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. All right, Health Department, Ms. Garrett.
Good evening. I had printed copies because I wasn't sure if Miss Nolan had had a chance to put it on your iPad, but she told me she did, so I sort of wasted a little paper there, but I'll be glad to take it and recycle it for you when we get to that. I have my August and September reports to present to you guys. Just a little summary of a couple of things we've been doing. We did a poverty simulation, or worked with a team doing that at Rock Springs Middle School, working with the school employees, kind of taking them through. I think we've talked about that before and what that is. So we did that some in August, and we've been working in Rock Springs Middle as well as Overall Creek and Hobgood doing nutrition lessons for in honor of Child Health Week. Which is actually in October when they have fall break. So we start doing little things at all our different schools, because gosh, there's so many schools now, to try to reach and get, I think we're up to 1,000 students that we've been talking to about My Plate and healthy eating. We'll go back in the spring and talk more about hygiene and other things, but that's some of the things we've been doing. Went to a couple of great public health conferences and presented some of the projects that we've done for tobacco, with the tobacco settlement dollars, and that happened in September. The statewide National Public Health Conference was held in Franklin, and we did that. Our numbers are right around where we would expect, steady, right? Matching up with where they were last month for both August or last year at this time, August and September. We see fluctuations throughout the year, and that's normal. Any questions?
Just some of the educational programs that you just mentioned, the nutritional education program, that type of thing. I know it's good, and I know it's well, and I know some of it appears to be well received, but is there any way to know if we make headway or do any good?
Absolutely. So there's a couple of different things we use as our measures to figure that out. We do some pre and post testing with the children to see if their knowledge base increased from before we start till when we finish, and we see a huge increase in knowledge after those classes. So that's one way. Also, we partner with Coordinated School Health a lot, and they collect data on BMI and those kinds of things. And over the last 2 years, we have seen a slight dip in the, it was constantly just shooting up in the obesity in children. Now, unfortunately, we're seeing a spike even more in adults, but for the children, we have seen. So as that could be a part of it, is added in. We have multiple nutrition programs, not to mention what the schools do on their own, but that we partner with the kids in the school. The Chef's Academy that you've heard me talk about, we've now started expanding that to the county after-school programs. It's just teaching the kids healthy food choices and even preparation techniques, growing food, those kinds of things, because the more involved they are in the process, the more we realize they're not as picky eaters as we tend to sometimes say they are. We'll have kids come into the health department for our picky eater class that we do, and the moms are always, and the parents are always amazed at the end, wow, they really did eat that. So we'll make it into something fun, like a salsa or something, and encourage them. So it's a slow process. We can't see huge things, but I think the pre and post test help us measure that, and we set some other measurable data that we look at both in their actions, things that they do, and that we look through with Coordinated School Health directors to see, okay, are these things available at their school too? What kind of after-school programs do we have? Those kinds of things.
On those lines, is the ACES program getting traction?
Yes, so unfortunately, the grant that I told you about that we had partnered with MTSU was not, they did not accept our proposal to try to move forward on that. So what we went back to the drawing boards trying to figure out what can we do and how can we add in more there. So we thought we would start small with our in-house patients, doing ACE questionnaires on people who are coming in for communicable diseases like STD, HIV, testing, that kind of thing. So we'll start there and kind of show that there's some, we don't have a ton of data to show people, and a lot of times you can't get approved for grants for other programming until you can show them, look, we do really have an issue here. So we have a population that we could ask those questions to, the ACE tool that actually ranks that.
The adverse childhood experiences, you remember that? It was presented 2
Yes.
months ago.
Yes.
I went back in my notes and it
Yes.
seemed very,
Yes.
very positive.
Yeah, and reached out to the family court, like you suggested, about training all their staff. So there's some, we have a trained trainer who can go out and educate other staff about how to do trauma-informed care, how to take care of people who've been through traumatic situations, and how to, just look at things differently through that lens. And so I do have one health educator who's trained in that, and so we're setting up some community trainings for them as well. So,
Maybe we'll get some
yes,
momentum.
yes, and I know, did you guys add an ACE position, where you at? An ACE position at the schools too? Like a counselor? I know the city
Yeah,
school
we
got a
had-
grant to do that.
We
I
didn't
wasn't
have a
sure.
grant, they may have designated.
Designated somebody
Sure.
for it.
I'm not
Yeah.
positive.
So there is some, people are starting to realize the importance of it and focusing more efforts towards it. So it's definitely still right on the top of our radar of how can we work this into things.
As the trainer who trains them, are they then going to do follow-up to try to capture, to make sure those encounters got reported?
Yeah, I think the first thing is just let them to know, like I did to you guys, just this is an
Exists.
issue and here's what we need to write. And then kind of figure out how can we, because it would look different in, say, the family court or, the health department or whatever facility a little bit differently. So figure out how we can take, now that we know this issue, what do we need to collect? And then how could we utilize that to show, and then have some measures in there. How do we know that did some improvement,
Thanks.
Yes, thank you.
Move to approve the report.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
And of course, I wouldn't be the health department director if I didn't mention flu shots.
Yes.
Right, so it is that time of year, and we have the open flu shot times. You can come, basically anytime we're open, 8 to 4:30, and get your flu shot at both our sites.
Is there a fee?
Yes, it is. It's based on your family income and your family size. And then we also do file some insurances as well. But it would be $25 full price if it's not covered on your insurance or anything. But most people, it's either covered on their insurance or it would scale for them.
How young?
We can do it up to 6 months. Yeah, that's the first age that it's recommended. And before they're 6 months old, we say build a cocoon around them of people who are vaccinated, right? So if it's a baby that's 3 months old, they can't get the vaccine, they're too young. So we want grandparents, caregivers, teachers, nurses, parents that are around that child's siblings to get the vaccine. Good question, thank you for reminding me.
An amendment for us? or
Yes,
contract?
and the last thing is the amendment. So yes, and these before I forget, thank you. The contract that we do every year that's totally reimbursable from the state of Tennessee, they are always way behind. So when we approved it in July with y'all's budget, they didn't have the right figures for the salaries. And they had already put in the health educator, but they hadn't put in the salary dollars to match. So we're just cleaning that part up, really, adding that in. And then they decided to put 1 more year's worth of money because we had good results, one of the top 5 results in the tobacco settlement programs that we did. So they gave us another $95,000 for this year's programming, so that is put in there as well.
What are your plans for that money?
So we have a couple of different things planned. Some of it will be, media and outreach, targeted messaging on some of the high school websites and, different things like that. We have a big teen focus on this, each year they wanted us to focus on, so this year they're asking us to really focus on teens or peers helping peers. So we got several peers helping peer program. One is, dance. So we're doing a Stomp Out Tobacco step dance, and that will be in December at MTSU's. Kids from all over the county will come and have dance competitions, but there's this learning part that they have to participate in, and their dance skits have to be related to not starting tobacco, so we're trying to reach kids at all different levels in all different, so we've targeted sports with knock tobacco out of the park, targeting our baseball fields and those kinds of things, and then we're working with kids that are interested in dance. We just partnered with the middle region of the state to do a big peer education program where we just talk to them, make sure they understand in their language. We did all kinds of social media with them and stuff, teaching them how to be peer counselors, going back and putting the good kind of peer pressure on their peers. And really getting the word out about the extra tobacco products. So maybe they know about cigarettes, right? They've got that message and they've heard that, but they don't understand the dangers of e-cigarette, and they don't understand the dipping and, those kinds of things. So focusing on that a lot. So this money will be on most of our programming targeting peers and teens. We'll still continue our Smoking Moms programs that has been really good, and our secondhand smoke, working with Parks and Rec to encourage smoke-free parks and those kinds of things. Lots of activities in that area this year.
Any questions on her amendment?
Motion approved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We need to vote.
Oh, I always forget this. We're going to roll call vote on that.
It is a grant amendment.
Right, I'm asking to send it to
It's
budget.
typically like an agreement, so it's not a roll call, but we can do it.
Oh, okay. I just wondered if we had to.
Yeah.
If Becky says no, we're good.
As I understand it, it's when you move money around. This would just be an agreement.
Right.
Right. Do you have anything else for us?
No, that's it. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate your support.
Thank you so much.
Anybody want me to read
Now, is your
that?
budget amendment with this grant agreement?
It's the, yeah, that's what it is.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you need the little paragraph, that's what it says.
Okay.
Do you need a copy of that?
If you have one, that would be.
Yeah, Lisa did make me an extra, but I can get it off of the internet.
Now, okay,
We need to call a roll on that.
Yeah.
if we're doing a budget amendment with that agreement, then yes, we
That's
have.
got numbers in it.
Sorry if I did that, if I presented
You're
it wrong,
fine.
sorry.
You're fine.
Okay.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
I just thought there were two separate
Oh, okay,
issues.
sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you,
Excellent,
guys.
thank you. All right, the community care report is next. It's on your iPads. Mrs. Carroll's or anything? Mayor, is there anything you want to share with us?
You want to give that report?
Business isn't usual, normal, and they're providing a good service, and we don't have any
So they're on a,
pending problems right now.
Have you heard if they made the third star?
No, I haven't.
haven't heard either. So we're working on getting a 3-star rating.
excellent. Very good. All right. And then the special projects report, Ms. Jolly?
Do we need to approve that
No,
report?
we do.
I move to approve.
I'm just off tonight, sorry, y'all.
I move to approve the community care report.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right, now Ms. Jolly. We've had this one for a little bit of time to look at, so.
Okay, the big thing to point out on this report is on the page 7 on the source of funds. The budget committee approved moving money around out of the, the undesignated project funds. So we moved from the future middle school to Laverne Middle, $15,659. From the future elementary school, we moved to David Urey, $2,918,000. From future elementary to Roy Waldron, $350,000. From future elementary to Laverne Middle, $116,667. And from future elementary to Oakland Middle, $4,291,667. So that got, she's trying to figure out what she needs to go to market to borrow. And so that's all on this report.
So you move some money around that will not require any additional funding
Right.
in the future.
Right.
Those are big dollars. They were moved from budgets that,
Like that, where we lump money into future middle school and future
Right.
elementary when we have money left over. So she
Okay,
just took
okay,
that money and
okay.
moved it.
Yes.
Yeah, we had them as a placeholder
Correct.
until we
Got it,
assigned them.
yes.
Any more questions for Ms. Jolly? I will entertain a motion.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Awesome. All right, school board. And I have also invited, without objection, Mr. Creasy to join us. He's the principal for Siegel, and I felt like it would be good to hear from him firsthand what some of their needs are. Join us up here, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Allen. I do want to begin by, did you notice we had 9 reward schools in an exemplary district? So I hope you, that's not easy to come by. The reward schools, you got to be in the top 5% of growth in the state, or the top 5% in performance in your category. So that's quite a
It's a
performance.
very big deal.
I don't know exactly how many exemplary districts. I know Westboro City did attain it in Williamson County, and I don't know that there will not be a large number, I don't think, so. That's good for our economy and business, and Chamber of Commerce loves it, I'll tell you that. You can understand. We do have one amendment for tonight we'd like to bring for the committee. This is meant for Siegel High School edition. The school board has voted to add 2 of the alternates, including R.G. Anderson Incorporated's bid for Siegel High addition to this project. Alternate number 1 is for a lecture amphitheater and additional classroom, $1,440,000. Alternate number 2 is to replace the baseball field lights with LED lighting, $194,000. The school board is asking to transfer $1,634,000 from the general purpose school unassigned fund balance so that these shared funds can be used to internally fund this part of the Siegel High Addition project until Rutherford County goes to the bond market for secondary education funds. At that time, this $1,634,000 will become available for the K through 6th grade projects. General purpose school unassigned fund balance is $30,188,139, or 8.275% of the 2017-18 general purpose school budget. School board requests that the county commission increase the construction budget for Siegel High Addition project by this $1,634,000 and use the $1,634,000 transfer to internally fund the shortfall Siegel High Addition construction contract. And the motion that the board approved was to transfer that $1,634,000 general purpose school unassigned fund balance to the school building fund, Fund 189, in order to internally fund alternates 1 and 2 for Siegel High Addition construction contract, and to ask the Rutherford County Commission to increase the construction budget for Siegel High Addition by this amount as presented. Would you like me to talk a little bit about them
Please.
before y'all kind of launch into it? We typically, when we do bid a project, Mr. Carter will almost put most always some type of alternate bid on it. The base project, because you have about 30 days, your contractor will hold the prices. This has been hard to hold prices in the last few months of dealing with that. So did award the bid for the base project to get that addition to Siegel High School. The other thing, we do have the lecture amphitheaters, and was built originally in Oakland, Riverdale, had them since 1972. We did have it in Sturge Creek High School. When you did our addition a few years ago at Blackman High School, that amphitheater was placed there. So we thought if we're going to do it, it needs to be done rather quickly. The other issue is this involves a lot of your footing. And so if they start the other building and you do not have the design of the sample field on the bottom floor with those footings, it would be really prohibitive to try to go back and never do anything again dealing with that. The alternate number 2, the baseball field lights, just to be honest with you, what we're running into there is the total light infill, outfill measure around the building is falling below TSSAA minimum requirements for lighting. So Mr. Carty kind of put that in as an alternate to deal with it. It's several things that we have to do. You have to change the wiring because we would recommend LED. Typically LED pays back in 5 to 7 years. May take a little longer if the baseball field's not on all the time. But would recommend that we do that. We'll probably, hopefully come to you sometime in the next few months with some more LED lighting if we can get more of the low interest loans, EESI. We've talked about that before, several times, because it does have a payback. It saves money in the long run. But the board I feel also, that these are 2 projects we do need to go ahead, since we do have some unassigned fund balance at this point. Maybe wrap up Siegel High, I don't know. But anyway, while we're there, to try to go ahead and make those additions and those changes.
I think we are putting LED lights in our new construction.
The new LEDs and the new, we've also done some parking lots and some other places and all too. It's kind of expensive on the front end, but it does have the payback.
Like at Blackman as an example, Stewart's Creek, what about the lighting there? I mean,
It's meeting the minimum requirements and all there. And of course, what year was Siegel?
2003.
One of the things that you run into is also over a period of time, and it depends upon the type of light, whether it's halogen or whatever it is, there's also a decline in the effectiveness of it or how much light it puts out. You get the curves to do that. Some of the bulbs have been individually replaced now, but at some point you kind of get to a point, if you're looking at you're going to have to replace all those bulbs with old lighting. Is it better to spend all that money to put all the old bulbs in there with new ones, or to try to make part of the transition to the LED that's going to pay you back over time and not using as much electricity? I've been there at night and seen it. It's different than many of our others.
Football field, okay?
Football feels pretty good.
We have them check all 3 of our fields. Football's got some banks of light that need to be adjusted, but we have to get someone out there with a large truck to do that. Softball is close enough to the requirements so that it's fine right now. But the baseball is quite.
So who determined the deficiency was there?
TSSAA, my coach had TSSAA call, or TSSAA recommends a lighting company for fields, so we had them come out with their equipment to check all 3 of our fields to see where we were. And we got that report and forwarded it on to them.
They have meters that they come out and actually measure different spots around the field.
It really wasn't TSSAA, it's just who
Right.
they recommend.
Contractors.
And the TSSAA did not alert you, you alerted them.
Well, they didn't even say anything about it. We knew it's been low for years. It's been low talking to coaches that's coached there and players that's played there. That it's been tough to see in certain spots. So my coach contacted the company to come out and to check it out. We prompted.
And went to TSSAA and said, this
Really, it didn't have anything to do with it. He will say that's just the person that they recommend to check the lights and fields.
They have a
but the
criteria.
report was presented to compared against TSSAA standards.
Recommendations. Right.
Minimum lighting standard.
So every school in the county could do a report and perhaps be below standard. We don't know.
Could be. Do we want to know? I don't know. Sometimes. But when something becomes really noticeable, certainly I think.
Has it always been like that?
I don't think it's been that.
I've been there
way.
for 4 years. This is my 4th year, and I noticed it in 2016. I went to another field and saw their lights at a night game, and then come back to our field. It's quite noticeable. And then I've talked to other coaches that's been there before, and they said that it's been there for
Where was
quite
that
a while.
other field?
Smart High School.
Is it a newer school?
Smart enough.
So those lights are older?
Mr. Carter reminded me it was before his time.
But they probably have been switched to LEDs, though. Smyrna's probably
It's still
the
active.
old style lights.
If you'll spoon feed us and maybe people watching on TV, the 1.6 million is coming from, in essence, the unassigned balance, right? Without any payback.
Temporarily.
Well,
That's my question, Will.
Yeah, with payback, yeah.
Yes.
What is the long-term effect that you're asking for? I know this thing says that something about going to the secondary bond market, so what are you really asking for from
How
us?
did you talk, this is
Yeah.
because the share part is
Yeah.
part of.
since our unassigned fund balance has been shared with the city, all of those revenues, when we transfer from unassigned fund balance to the building program, we use it for internal funding. And then when the county goes to the bond market for secondary 712 projects, then you borrow that money and we reassign that, the changes Teresa mentioned, moving money to elementary projects. That was money we had transferred from ending fund balance that was shared, temporarily used it to fund secondary projects. And then when you went to the bond market for the secondary projects, it was reassigned to elementary projects. We would have to borrow about 16% more money if we used this for elementary, I'm sorry, if we used this actual 1.6 million for an actual 712 project and didn't do the internal funding, we'd have to borrow about 16%
But
more.
at some point, we're going to have to
Oh, of
come back.
course.
And so what you're really asking for is about roughly $1.5 million in increased secondary funding, right?
1.634.
Yeah.
And-
Oh, sure.
All of it, but
Okay.
it's high school, so there's not any sharing, so we don't have the 16%.
Right.
But this is just additional bond revenue,
Right.
additional debt.
Oh, yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
just like the last several school
Right.
projects, this is.
But it does
just-
reduce the overall level borrowed by what we transfer.
Part of this is
Well, if we were
cash.
borrowing strictly for the high school, it wouldn't know, because there would be a share. there.
Sure. But, well, yeah. But anything we're able to transfer from the GPS fund balance will ultimately help lower what we borrow.
And my question is, you just stated a minute ago that Oakland and Riverdale had amphitheaters. Stutz Creek has an amphitheater. Blackman has an amphitheater. How come an amphitheater wasn't built at Siegel to start with? Because it's not that old a school, but it's, you know, there's been schools come after it, and there were schools before it, but apparently,
Well, Blackman was added with another addition.
Okay.
It was added. You originally had just the Oakland and the Riverdale thing, but as we came back and have added, because it's used, it's MTSU, you know, you see the same type of presentations and science areas and that sort of thing. It's just
I'm
another-
familiar with that. And I guess my second part of that question is, why wasn't it included in this $5-6 million project to start with? Because we obviously knew these other schools had it, and we knew that Siegel didn't have it, so.
It was because we didn't know what the total bid was gonna be in the market at this time, that it was more important of us to make sure we got seats in. So if it's too high and you couldn't do any of the project, sometimes you're better to do your amendments and then pick out which ones you might be able to fund.
From an overall funding standpoint, and that's basically what this body does, I'd rather look at the overall picture than look at, because I think we spoke about this before, than look at it piecemeal. You know, just one part of it, and then you come back with another part. Because to start with, it's more palatable if you've got a lower number, right? And then you come back, and that's kind of my complaint. And like I said, I've made that an issue before in the previous.
And we have been facing with the local economic and the local construction situation for the Smyrna Middle Edition, for Rocky Fork Middle, for our last project. We go through each year, and Mr. Clardy and I get together and we try to update numbers. We didn't update the numbers enough. We didn't raise the numbers enough last year to account for the situation we're facing. Based on what construction figures were looking like last year, when we updated, that's where we came up with the I think it's $6.2 million current budget for the Siegel High addition.
Madam Chairman, will you let Mr. Creasy kind of give his?
Absolutely, yeah, please.
My point is, even with, if we get this addition on top of the other part, the main building, is we're still probably going to be 3 to 4 teachers on a cart, and that's without the growth. And time we do rezoning in a year, we'll have more growth and still will not still be short of rooms, more than likely. We'll continue to have more teachers on the cart. So my point is, and hopefully that we can go ahead and get this building completed, because we probably won't come back and do these 3 rooms if we don't do it now. I would doubt that we'd ever get to that point. And like I said, with the lecture hall, it will be used for our students. We can have if the chemistry department wants to come down and do a presentation or have a guest lecturer or other classes, it will be used for that as well. And there'll be another classroom and then another art room. We've added architecture this year, so the art room upstairs currently is going to have to be moved because the architecture has got to go into that room where it was at when Siegel originally opened. We added that program this year, so that's the reason for making it one specifically an art room in this new part.
So will this room be used on a daily basis?
Yes, sir.
And it's 3 classrooms.
3 classrooms.
And amphitheater.
No, 3 classrooms. The amphitheater is one of the classrooms, plus 2 other additional.
So I was trying to envision, so it's not like an outdoor ramp. This is an enclosed room
yes,
that we use year-round regardless
Yes.
of what it is.
Like you find over in MTSU if you're in a 100 series class or something.
I'll probably support this, but I agree with Commissioner Gurley. I mean, it'd been much more palatable if we looked at this total package from the start. Because we knew the whole time there wasn't an amphitheater, and we didn't know about the LED lighting apparently. That got to be dealt with at some point in time. But I would have been much more comfortable if we had just done this in the package from the start instead of here at the 11th hour saying, hey, we want to add 3 more classrooms or 2 more classrooms, whatever, in an amphitheater. I do feel it was, and you may get, and if it passes here, you may get some grief at the big room too.
What is the status of the Laverne requests that have been out there for 4 years, my 3.5 years, 3+ years? Restrooms, football field expansion, bleacher expansion. Concessions, it's been no.
It's still on the building plan, will be on the next 5-year building plan. But
Continues to be
what's been
denied.
really interesting, that because it's been so long, when we look at the numbers and we look at the cost now, and we even pulled out most of the bleachers because we had to go back and add, because American Disabilities Handicap, remember, we had to add some bleachers in places, park wheelchairs and all, which we did separately from that. But we started out less than $1 million, and you're now looking at close to $3 million. I mean, we are now having to look at adding about 3 to 5% a year for every year you wait. But that's just construction right now in the current economy. What it'll be in year 2, can't say, but that's what's happening right now.
I'm struggling supporting this. I acknowledge that to Mr. Creasy on the way in. Matter of fact, I haven't been swayed yet. I'm a no. In all likelihood, when we do consider this, I'm concerned about Laverne with less of a articulate student body or staff or whatever. We've neglected them for years. And so it concerns me. In the school in my district, I've been on the board for, again, 3 years plus. We just got running water in the locker rooms. We've got 1,200 students, 1 gym. We've got an amphitheater, a lecture hall, an assembly hall that was built when my dad was in school in 46. We have no heat and air. And so I'm struggling with supporting this. I know we have the word classroom here. We've been reluctant to fund non-classroom efforts. We do have a classroom here that makes it somewhat more palatable. But I'm distressed with the progress at the school in my district.
And if I could address that, Commissioner, I had a call from a parent Friday, and this triggered by the action for the previous evening. And I went through our capital projects budget, which y'all have seen, but like me, until I went through and pulled it up. We had something over $1 million of that 4.1 million in this year's budget is designated toward Central Magnet.
The AC, the
Roof,
parking lot, absolutely.
AC, parking lot, locker rooms,
Yes.
restroom renovations, and those are items that Mr. Clardy and the board and Mr. Odom are we're trying to get those in priority, but those are a small enough scale, not in total, but we piecemeal them, that we can get them into capital projects. One of the discussions we have had in previous years, well, is there any way we can get Smyrna or Laverne project in capital projects? Well, with it crossing more to $1.5 million, that would be, we have to look at roofs, we have to look at the roofs, the HVAC, those sorts of things first. And I really don't know that with the price escalations we've seen on those projects, capital projects is a viable thing for that. But we are trying to address those issues at Central, and use that fund for what it was designed for. But originally, we were hoping, before costs escalated, that we'd be able to handle like some elementary school renovations from that fund. We have too many maintenance issues coming up to even be able to do that.
Central, we have teachers in carts, a number of them. as I understand it.
Yeah.
And those teachers that use the carts have to go into a classroom where a teacher's on her assigned planning period. She doesn't have a place to plan. And we have no athletic facilities outside the one gym. How does a school prompt the school board to raise its needs to a higher priority? Parent complaints, commission assertiveness, what rises the needs of Central to the level of receiving attention?
One of the original creation of Central Magnet School was modeled some after Hume Fogg in Nashville and some of the others. What basically is in most of those cases was what the board, for the funding and get it in place, that we just can't do a lot of the athletic things in addition to it. The cost in an older building to do that may not be the best thing to do at that time. So when the board originally passed it, of course, no football. They did play baseball somewhere else. A lot of the kids at Central also, their golf, their tennis, a lot of their soccer and the other types of sports, they're pretty strong in. I mean, that particular group of students is in there. But track, I mean, they certainly have a robust athletic, but with 1,200 students and some of them being middle school too, it's very difficult to pump large sums of money into an athletic facility with that type of split.
And we did have, it kind of strange, I'm the one who was here at this point, but when these presentations were made to the board, these points were covered. When I came up here to help and edit the budget, we made the same
Magnet
points.
School back then?
Yes, as part of this proposal, we discussed that limited scope on athletics and all, that we would concentrate our resources on the academics.
There was a lot of discussion, and that even was one of the selling points to the other principals. I remember some other principals had drawbacks. I'm going to lose my best and brightest students. And commitment to the commission, yes, I remember it because I was here and on budget committee at one time, there would be very minimal athletics. So we wouldn't be coming back to build athletic facilities and stuff. And it also promised these other principals that a lot of these students are going to stay in these schools for the football, for the robust athletic programs. And Central's actually done a whole lot with very little. They've got a robust athletic program when nobody foresaw that even happening. You know, they're a victim of their own success, you know, and I don't mean to disrespect Central at all, but that is a choice school. And all those kids are zoned somewhere else. You know, look at in my opinion, some of your most successful schools are McFadden, Central, and Campus, and those are our worst facilities in the whole county. And stuff, so those are choice schools or applied schools and stuff, so that, you know, I mean, On this application here, I look at it a little differently than the football fields. And I don't doubt that Smyrna, Laverne, or Passion, they need that, but they need that about 6 to 8 nights a year. That's when they have the home football games, because the JV games, the soccer games and all don't bring the crowds in. Those home football games, which is a very minimal amount of time. That's why I've in the past not supported spending the big dollars down there, because that's for a lot of money for a handful of nights a year, or hopefully, if I were to support this today, it would be because it's something that you're telling me is going to be used every day for educational purposes.
Mr. Dodd, at the time when they did Central Magnet, one of the thoughts was that they wouldn't have athletics and students could return to their home school. TSSAA will not allow that. So that spurred really development of sports there. Other than you designate one school somewhere,
Like
that
football.
you had to pick one. So Eagle was the football.
Yeah.
But they've been able to maintain the other sports. But that was the thought process at the time, just come to your home school, come work practice after school.
And I don't want to go too far into being an athletic supporter. It's apparently the #1 school in the state academically as well. Central is. So from an academic standpoint, teachers in carts and so forth, so I'm distressed even greater to hear that the board made a commitment to utilize an old school with no intentions of improving it to a great extent in the future.
Well, you got 100.
Is it going to run its course?
You got 146 portables still out there, still at other schools too. That kids are going to and from that. But if you remember, there was quite a bit of renovation done in the band room. That whole wing that's to the back was career and technical education, vocational, if we call it that.
Right.
All of that was divided, changed. That's where your engineering classes and your other health sciences and all of that's in that. So there's been quite a few alterations to the building in that respect to accomplish that. So
That's where I had classes in middle school.
Yeah. We had a teacher center there at
classrooms
one
there.
time, if you remember, in that wing. So it's been utilized in a number of ways.
Well, I won't belabor this body's, perhaps I'll take my conversation to the appropriate place, the school board. So thanks for y'all's patience in letting me articulate some concerns for school in my district.
That $194,000 is, it chokes me, okay? But as far as your budget, it's not even a drop in that bucket. So that doesn't bother me, but can't this be handled internally through your maintenance budget? I mean, it seems like a maintenance issue to me. Can't you handle it there, or shouldn't you be handling it there?
I mean, it could possibly be handled there, but then something else not going to get done. I mean, that's the bottom line that you run to. Or you don't play there. I don't know, which came up at our last board meeting. If we know it's a safety issue, do you put kids back out on it, and what's your liability?
Is it a safety issue or a performance issue?
Well, if the lighting is low, I mean, I don't know how it'd be interpreted. That would be
Kids are gonna,
Legal
it's so
minds.
low that kids are gonna run into each other?
That's not it
the
baseball.
issue.
If you're playing baseball today, and especially in high school, you have kids that are throwing at some tremendous speeds. And if you don't have the lighting at night vision playing is a lot different than daytime. I've done it. I remember. I know today is my birthday, and I'm a lot older. But I can remember playing under lights, and I remember playing in daytime. And I loved daytime. I hated nighttime because I had somewhat of night blindness, and I played third base, and you could almost get killed over there. And I could understand with low light what you would have in a situation like that. I would say it is a safety issue if you got that much of a low light situation. Yeah, it could be a safety issue. I can understand that.
If I may address your concern.
Thank you.
Commissioner Phillips. From Gary Clardy, Kim Williams, and I monitoring the maintenance budget, our goal each year is to make sure that we keep enough money in. Sometimes it hits mid-May, but definitely by early June, to, okay, here are the ongoing, here are the crucial things we're going to do. We are finished with our projects by that point. We're going to have to, this little emergency comes up, it generally, I would say, somewhere there mid-June, mid-May to the end of the first week in June, we're down to $120,000 to $80,000 to get us through the end of June.
Jeff, I'm not challenging any of that.
As far as the projects Gary has in mind and is working on. So yes, would it be possible to try to work it into next year's budget? But he's
my whole point is that this, to me, may be more of a maintenance issue than it is a capital issue. And I hate to borrow money when in my mind, it should be prioritized in some other way. If it's a low priority for the maintenance, then I think that's an internal issue, not an issue that we should be addressing. And let me just get back to the unassigned fund balance. It's $30 million, and you're talking about $1.5 million, a little over 1.6 million. Just use it out of that. Why do you want to go to the bond market? Why don't you just use that?
Because it's not totally unassigned.
Well, no, it is simply unassigned.
Let me just, can you address that? Why don't you just use it there? I mean, you're prioritizing once again. You're asking for us to refund that money, and I'm just thinking that you use that.
You've asked us in recent years to use unassigned fund balance to purchase properties instead of
and elementary.
That's also in our future. We've grown a little over 1,200 this year. That's another school. So I'm just saying all of that's in front of us still. And you know, can the unassigned fund balance help with it? Yes, it can. But it's limited in what it can do in that respect also.
How much have you all set aside in this budget for the seed money for opening Rockville?
2.5.
2.5 million.
Yes.
2 years from now.
And the plan is to do it again next year.
Our hope.
So we'll have enough money to soften the blow of opening
Right.
Rockville. So they are hitting unassigned fund balance they have for 2.5. Yeah, already this year, 2.5 million.
I think the mayor had something to contribute.
I hadn't really thought about this until some of you raised some of these questions. When we borrow money, what we're borrowing it for should have a life expectancy of at least 20 years. And I'm a little concerned that this has wandered off into something that these new LED lights may not even last that long. I don't know. But I think I don't think it's a capital expenditure. I don't want us to wander off into the bond arena and people question what we've used that money we borrowed on a 20-year payback.
You mentioned.
And I may be off in left field here, but I mean, it's a little bit of concern. I haven't
That actually ties
thought about it.
That ties into a question that I had, which was, if this were any other school and not Siegel, would you be asking to fund it the same way, or is it Siegel because we're already doing a project there and you were going to lump it in? So
That's typically when you go in and you have a bid and alternate with a contractor that involves it, that has equipment and things there, it works better and it's typically cheaper than separate.
Well, this is rolled into the actual whole project, because there's lights at Rockville High School that won't last 20 years. They're being bought with bond money. It's part of the bigger project. What about the EESI money that we've done in the past? You mentioned that earlier. Would it be possible to not fund this in this direction and go in that direction?
I don't know.
Because we've had great success with them in the past.
Yeah. And Mr.
Zero or low
Clardy is
interest.
working on a set of projects to carry forward to them. So,
And do we have any idea what the cost would be to replace these bulbs and not upgrade to the LED? Because then you wouldn't have to do the wiring and the other parts. I'm just wondering, would that be more palatable to the maintenance?
Yeah, I would like to know if that's a $5,000 spent or a $50,000.
I've seen bulbs, I've purchased some bulbs lately, and the LEDs are running $95, and the halogen or halides are running 12, 10,
I think it might be
9
good.
in those numbers. So from a per light standpoint, it could be considerable.
I'm just thinking that it might be good to know as we're comparing the two, because you wouldn't have rewiring and things like that going on.
I'd like to see these two items separated out.
Okay. When we vote.
We've got alternate 1 and alternate 2. Somebody can make whatever motion. Got two school board members over here, they wanna jump in anything?
Well,
That means it's
thank
on
you
you.
so much,
That's
Mr. Shirley. The lighting on the infield at Siegel High School is, I'm not even sure what they call it, but it's supposed to be, it's foot candles, it's supposed to be 50. It's 32. So it's 64% of what the 211 AA has as a good figure. And there are some spots in the outfield that are pretty dark. Now that's, I think, and our board has pretty much, I think, decided that it was a safety issue, and that we're going to have to fix it. Now, what the situation is anywhere else, I am not aware personally of a problem anywhere else, lighting problem. And remember that I said that, a lighting problem in any other baseball or softball field that I know of. But that one, and I think Mr. Creasy is exactly right, is noticeable, very noticeable. I noticed it when we were broadcasting. When I was working with WGNS, when broadcasting out there, it was clearly darker.
Did the experts, when they came in, give you any clear indication that you should be putting LED lights in or just replace the light bulbs? Did you ask?
They just measure them.
They just measured the,
So they didn't give you any advice? All of this stuff, Siegel is a great high school, but Blackman's a great high school, and Smyrna's a great high school. And I'm sitting here wanting to say yes to everything that you guys come up with. I really do. But there's two things that really bother me. Number one is that you're coming back after we've approved a $5-point-something million expansion of that, asking for more. And there are those that might question that. I don't know whether a lecture amphitheater is the most important thing that could happen to a high school. I don't know. But the $194,000 needs to be done. But I get back to where if it's a safety issue, it's an internal maintenance issue, and you guys should be handling it with whatever budget you have. Prioritize it. If it's not high on that priority list, then how could it be a safety issue? So I just think it's something that you guys need to be funding internally, ending fund balance, whatever you guys want to do. But it's not a capital project that we should be going out and borrowing money for. I've got an issue with that. The other one I've got an issue with, but knowing you guys and how y'all utilize the money, I'd be more inclined to support it, even though I've got some concerns about it. And we'll probably catch some flack from some folks out there saying, what are you doing? You know, here's the school board. They come in and ask for money. All along, they know they're going to come back 6 months later and ask for more, which, you know, I'm not supporting, and I don't believe that. But the alternate number 2, I know it's important and I know it needs to be done, but you guys got to handle that. We're not going to go out. I'm not going to go out in the Capitol and do that. The 1.4 million. And I think, Mr. Creasy, I think you guys do a wonderful job. And if you say it's in the long-term best interest, I'm just going to have to take your word for it, and we'll do whatever we need to do to bring that school up to the grade that it needs to be. But the athletic department is important, and I know it's important. But to me, it's not as important as building those classrooms and putting students under a roof versus in portables and those kinds of things. So just my take on things. If it's a maintenance issue, you handle it. Don't come back and ask us to borrow money to handle a maintenance issue.
I have a question for Jeff. I don't remember the specific example, but in my mind somewhere, it seems like I'm remembering that Mr. Clardy has done this before, because sometimes when we don't know what prices on things are, he might put in a plan,
We do it every time.
like almost like a wish
Yes.
list, like a what if,
Yes.
could we get,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
so
yes.
then if the number
Every
comes
time.
in and it's
Right.
acceptable,
Right.
then we might go ahead and do it,
Yes,
so.
and we often, usually on a project, have some number of alternates. And then the decision is made, what do we need to go, what do we need to go with, what is the priority of those? Some of them are wish list items, some of them are,
Nice to have, or.
well, and some of them are crucial pieces that you just,
Are willing to cut out to get it in the number you want, or?
Yeah, well, can we post, is there an advantage to us? Is it worth, this is a poor example, but it comes to mind. Is there example to postponing doing some of the site grading on this multi-school site? That is not what we would want to do from prior experience. We think that one works better, but various pieces will be bid as alternates, yes.
So it's not like this is just a completely
Oh, no.
unique way to do this, it
I've
just,
seen 3, 4, 5, I'm wanting to say as many as 7 alternates on some of the projects. Some of the alternates will be A and B, or D and E, or, but how different alternates give us some options.
Was the amphitheater listed in any of those options before and taken out due to pricing? Or is this the first we've seen of the amphitheater?
It's just been bid one time.
It's just been bid once.
So the
It was
amphitheater
there.
wasn't in the wish list before.
It was as an alternate when it was bid.
Yeah.
At
Mr.
1.4.
It seems to me like.
Yeah, that's what the bidder got.
Yeah,
That's what
we
he did.
didn't know what it was
Gonna be.
in at.
But it was in the original bid. We very often, when we get to when you have an amount, you have to sit down and you have this construction meeting and what can you do to bring this figure down? I mean, this happens almost with every building we've got.
Sure.
Right.
And so you take some things that, something's got a life expectancy in the building, something for 25 years, but yet, well, let's go with something that might be 18 or 17. But if your bids come in good, construction's good, then you feel comfortable doing that. But we do this negotiation virtually with every building bid that you have.
I was involved in the meetings. I'm sorry, Commissioner.
go ahead, Commissioner Grove.
Yes, I came here tonight prepared to vote against this in totality, but I would like to make a motion. And my motion is to fund alternate 1 and to not fund alternate 2. Because I believe that the contractor that's doing the work on Siegel, I've seen his work in other places. He does an excellent job. He will probably do this as cheap as Rutherford County can get it done, and he does it in a timely manner. And so that's my motion.
Second. Jeff and Jeff, both of you, I know the $194,000 is probably something that it's timely. Baseball season comes when winter's still here, so you've only got 2 or 3 months to kind of get something in place, and I know it's timely, but yeah, I just think it's something that the school board needs to handle internally.
And may I ask for a clarification on the motion? I had to get some of this on this motion. Well, I was on vacation when this happened, so we had to do this at our last board meeting. Then are you also proposing that the amount of the transfer from our ending fund balance be reduced
Yes.
to $1,440,000? Okay, just for clarification's purposes.
May I ask, how many square feet are in the 1.4 million?
Gosh, I don't know right off the top of my head.
I have no idea. It is expensive space because of the art room. You need to cover for what's now being used as architecture in the amphitheater. But I do not remember the square footage at all.
The new addition, that's the 5 million, how many classrooms are we getting out of that?
11.
Okay.
And this was designed, when the building was built, there was stub outs. When that building was originally
Yeah.
designed to add the addition on it. Really.
Yeah.
That was there.
Well, if this passes, you'll be getting 80% of what you asked for, and I feel sure you can get creative and find $194,000.
Or may not need 194,000 if it's just as cost effective to just replace with the bulbs. I mean, you said you went to Smyrna, they were old bulbs, the lighting worked fine. You know, one of the points that Mr. Odom had made was that LED takes several years to pay itself off. Well, this isn't used as often, it's gonna take even longer to pay itself off. So there's that part of my mind that just wonders, is that the best investment in this particular example?
I wish we were closer to when the school was new. It sounded like it wasn't designed correctly to start with, because we could go back on somebody, but I still think that's a new school, but it's opened 14 years ago, so I don't guess we can, but it sounds like there's not enough lights there to start with, or something's off on the placement or something.
What I remember about the lighting when they was building the school, the neighbors didn't like all the lighting around there.
Yeah.
And they had
That may
an
be another
outdoor
problem if you improve the
theater.
house.
They were building an outdoor theater, and I think they decided not to do that at that time. There was a lot of controversy over it. I can't remember that far back.
Yeah, I think that's a whole nother issue that you may have to do a light study and so on. You may run into problems with the city of Murfreesboro.
Majority of the neighbors that were complaining were on the other side of the campus. There's only 3 houses, 2 now. Two of them tore down. There's a subdivision coming, you better get it done before you know it. Because the neighbors that were complaining were on the other side, because there was a whole thing where we moved that campus around 2 or 3 times as far as placement of fields and things like that. But Ms. Cook may be exactly right. We might have pared back on the lighting just to make sure we didn't encroach on the surrounding neighbors.
I remember Commissioner Jerry Baxter was very much in on all of that.
I remember many meetings on that topic.
Very adamant.
Any more discussion on this motion? Let's do a roll call. Is everybody clear on the motion?
We're going to fund alternate number 1.
And make the appropriate transfer
From unassigned
from unassigned fund balance.
Your motion is fund alternate 1 and not fund alternate 2, reducing the transfer from the general purpose school unassigned to $1,440,000.
Correct.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
No.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes. Okay, and while I have everybody's attention, I want to talk about 2 safety issues at Smyrna. One of them is the heating and air conditioning. And I know we've been working on making repairs there. And this is the most extreme example, but we had a teacher who had her heating and air out for so long, she actually went to the emergency room for heat exhaustion. That is not a safe work environment. Not for her, not for those students. And so whatever we need to do to make sure that on our capital projects, that the heating and air at those older schools is at the top of the list, it needs to be at the top of the list. And then the other thing, as far as safety goes, is the restrooms and concessions at Smyrna Laverne is a safety issue. And we do use them for JV games and for middle school games. I mean, they're used a lot, and those are well attended. And so I think it's more than just 6 nights a year, and I do think we've been on record for a while saying it's a safety risk. When you have the visiting team who has to come to the home side and be squeezed into a very small space, which is where most of the students hang out anyway, it's not a good situation. I mean, it's a recipe for a hot mess. Unfortunately, we've got terrific SROs who are there, and they do a great job, monitoring and trying to keep us safe, but they can only do so much, and it only takes a second for something like that to pop off and be really dangerous. So I really want us to see if we can't move that up on our list of priorities as well.
Well said.
Thank you.
I am an advocate of your leadership, Don.
Sure.
Jeff, I'm an advocate of your leadership. I'm an advocate of your thought processes. I have trusted your board, including its current leadership and iterations I've seen since I've been here. So I want to make that clear. It's hard to say no to y'all because I respect you so much. There are some priorities that I think are being, it takes a squeaky wheel to get some attention. So just please pay attention to these schools who don't have a voice.
Anything else for the school board? Mayor, you have anything else for us? No? All right, without objection, we stand adjourned.